Hello, BookTube. Well, this is part two of my reaction to the whole Carve the Mark controversy that has been embroiling the bookish social media world, Instagram, Twitter, BookTube, about Veronica Roth's new novel, Carve the Mark, in which there are two groups of, it's a fantasy novel in which there are two groups of beings. There's a flaxen-haired, white-skinned, civilized group, and there's a dark-skinned, curly-haired, savage group. And when the book first appeared, a bunch of high-profile, multi-thousand subscriber booktubers did a whole bunch of sponsored videos holding it up, hyping it, and it went on the bestseller list. And then a wave of reaction kicked in when a whole bunch of people noticed that premise seems based on racist templates, at the very least. At the very least, it's an easy, reductive thing to do, and at worst, it encourages that kind of thinking. And the first part of my reaction video dealt with the people who took that reaction. That reaction is a perfectly valid literary criticism. My first reaction was on the people who took that too far, took it to fascist extremes, and wanted to muzzle the author or make them apologize, make them do differently in their next book, when what the author does in their book is entirely up to the author and should always be. That's sacrosanct. This second part of my bile-a-thon deals with something else, an element that bothered me in the whole thing more than anything else. Stupid, immature people going at YA novels like they were conversations in a high school cafeteria will say stupid things. They will expect apologies. They will expect redress of grievances. They will expect to find themselves represented in the work as if the book was there for them. They will expect that, and that doesn't really get me going too much. The part of the whole thing that bothered me is the part I mentioned a little bit earlier here, and I glossed over it in both these videos, but now I want to center on it. And it's those sponsored videos. It's those BookTube sponsored videos. A couple of dozen booktubers with large subscription counts were given advanced copies of Carve the Mark. And they did sponsored videos about it, softening the ground, increasing the hype, increasing the conversation, virtually guaranteeing the thing a soft landing on the New York Times bestseller list. And the point I want to make about those videos, I have a couple of things I want to say. The main point I want to make is that there's no such thing as a sponsored video. When you sponsor someone, it raises the image of putting a decal on a car at the Indy 500. That's crazy. It's a euphemism. When you sponsor someone, you provide them with the means to better themselves. And then you take a big step back. The rest of it's up to them. You've sponsored them, and you hope they do you proud. That is not what these booktubers do. And it drives me nuts, because in this case, the euphemism is not only a euphemism, but a bald-faced lie. In every one of those cases, the booktuber in question held up Carve the Mark and said a variation of the same thing in virtually the same words. Yes, Simon & Schuster is sponsoring this video, but my thoughts, opinions, and feels about the book are entirely my own. And I have two things to say about that. One, it is a lie. And two, if you believe it, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. Once someone pays you to do these are not sponsored videos. These are paid advertisements. You have agreed to become part of the paid PR machinery of the book in question. It is not a sponsored video if the sponsor gets to dictate what the outcome will be. If the sponsor knows what the outcome will be, then they're an employer, not a sponsor, and you're an employee, not a sponsored video or a video tuber or whatever. If you're a booktuber with 188,000 subscribers and you say, Simon & Schuster sent me this book so I can hold it up and talk about it with you, but they don't expect me, they're not telling me what to say, you're lying. If Simon & Schuster thought there was any chance that you would hold up that book and say it's a piece of poop, don't buy it, they'd want their money back. They'd get their money back legally. And it doesn't even matter in a bigger way than that. You should never believe it when someone says that. But there's also an element in which it wouldn't matter anyway. because of the sheer number of books that are published in America every year. It's, let's say, 200,000 books published in America every year. Now let's take a big axe to that in terms of the kinds of books. So let's remove Bibles, Bible studies, language studies, computer, coding books, business books, cookbooks, let's say children's books, let's say all that sort of stuff. You take all the textbooks, the foreign language books, everything like that out of it. Even at the most generous you could possibly be, you're still going to end up with what? I would say 100,000, but let's say 50,000. Let's say 50,000 books. 50,000 new general interest mainstream books of a reviewable nature. 50,000. The most active literary review journals in the Western world can do maybe 300, 400, maybe 500 reviews in a year. Out of 50,000. Which means that if you so much as notice a book, I've heard this said on BookTube, and it's definitely been said in my profession, and it's absolutely true. The game is won or lost not with a positive or negative review. No publicist worth their salt will ever call you on that. They know better. They know their job. The game isn't a positive or negative review. The game is notice. The game is to notice it at all in the torrent of books coming out. If someone pays you to notice a book, they have paid you to like it. And if someone pays you to like a book, you have sold your critical integrity. And you can only do that once. It doesn't matter at all if 2 months from now or a year from now you say, here's a book I really want to recommend to you, and this time I'm not being paid to praise it. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter to me, and it shouldn't matter to you. A person who has been paid to praise a book can never be trusted again, critically. Which is why that's the whole purpose of this rant is twofold. One, I would really like it if those those highest profile booktubers, none of them are watching this and none of them are ever going to see it, but in a perfect world, they were the people I once upon a time, a year ago, wanted to have these conversations with. I had no idea the breadth or plenitude of people out there. I just naturally, like everybody else coming to BookTube, I found the biggest people first. They're never going to watch this. And I don't think they would admit it if they did. But if I had their ear, I would say, don't do it. The damage is already done, but don't keep doing it. Don't ever do a sponsored video again. Don't call it that. If you're going to take a publisher's money, just make it completely honest. Make it completely bald. Say, you're not going to get any of my opinions here. Instead, I'm just going to hold this up in front of the camera, my high-definition camera, and we're going to talk about it. And maybe it'll attract your interest. I'll read the publicity sheet. I'll read the things about it. Maybe I'll talk about my previous encounters with the author's work. I won't talk about my encounters with this work because who cares? Who's going to believe it? Who's going to believe that I'm giving you any kind of a critical assessment of a book when money has changed hands? To those booktubers, I would say, please stop doing it. It's not just that you're continuing to harm your own credibility. You're also harming BookTube in a way, because you know, the mind frame of the suits that run the publicity department of a lot of big publishers is that everything is a cog in their machinery and anybody can be bought. If you prove them right, no. My main point in this second rant is directed at up-and-coming booktubers who might have it in their head to dream of making sponsored videos. Don't do it. You can notice books on your own. It's a slower process. It doesn't involve money, but it keeps your critical integrity intact. You can make a blog in 5 minutes that looks really good, and you keep at it for a couple of years and people will notice it. You can make a BookTube channel in no time at all. If I can do it, you can do it. And in no time at all, you will have subscribers. And if you have a following, you will start to get noticed. And the more you're noticed, the larger your following will get. All done honestly. All done without getting in bed with the PR arm of a publishing house. If you want to be involved in the PR arm of a publishing house, that's just fine. Those jobs are open, and publicists for publishers are some of my favorite people. I deal with them every day, and I love them. I love the enthusiasm. But they can't decry a book on their list. They can't do it. They'd be fired if they did it. They're lucky if they can find book after book after book that they can actually get behind. I know some who can't. I know some who do. But they can't criticize their own list or they'll be fired. If you're willing to take that condition, which is the condition that you accept when you do a sponsored video, whether you admit it even to yourself or not, then why not just work for them? Or, make a channel along those lines. A totally sponsored PR channel. But if you're an up-and-coming booktuber and you're looking at your subscriber count and you're starting to think, I'm starting to get emails from publishers feeling me out, don't do it. If a publisher writes to you and says, we'd like you to feature this book on your channel, and if you charge for this service, we're happy to meet your rates, politely decline. Every time, no matter what. If a publisher writes to you and says, we've noticed the content on your channel, we really like it, I'd like to send you this book, and maybe you like it, and if you do, maybe you'll review it. If the whole thing is up in the air, fine, absolutely, you deserve it, so go right ahead. But if there's a transaction involved, please be aware of what you're selling. It's a lot more than 10 minutes on a YouTube video. It's something you can't get back. So there you go. That's my second rant about this. I don't think there's a third one. I think I might have run out of bile. But I'll move on to other things. Don't you worry. It's just I think I couldn't let a controversy like this go without jumping in. Now could I? After all, no controversy is complete until an old fat white guy weighs in. I'll see you soon, Book 2. Thank you.